Welcome to Unity Talks, where the hiring experts of Dallas-based recruiting firm Unity Search engage in lively discussion with successful business leaders to dissect their careers and how they got to where they are today, the obstacles overcome to reach their success, and steps they've taken to stay at the top of their respective fields. So listen in as we provide you with the thought-provoking conversation and ideas that keep industries moving forward.
And welcome back to another edition of the Unity Talks podcast. I'm your host, David Cathey, and we're so thankful that you get to join us today. We're filming in the afternoon, but you may be watching this in the morning, at night, whatever time of day. We're happy that you're here, and we hope that you actually forward this podcast along to someone that you think it may perhaps make a difference. Okay. So our guest today is super special. I'm going to introduce here in just a second, but you'll notice I am actually wearing a jacket with a little sign here that says MADD Sports, if you can pick that up. And we're going to make our guest tell us what that is here in just a second. So our guest is Amber Kinney. She is the CFO of MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And we're super thankful that you got to spend some time with us today, Amber.
Thank you, David. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so every time I started off, you got to tell us a little bit about your company. Give us a little quick infomercial, and then you need to kind of stick in there. What is MADD Sports?
Absolutely. Well, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is a national nonprofit, and we're focused on the movement to end impaired driving for good. We've been around since 1980, so 45 years we'll be celebrating this year. And MADD has helped reduce drunk driving by 40% since our inception. We've saved almost 500,000 lives in that time frame. And we have served more than 1 million victims and survivors. We are committed to leading prevention efforts with young adults and with those of legal drinking age. We're collaborating with law enforcement. And we are committed to stricter sentencing laws and working on the enforcement side with law enforcement, our partners in law enforcement. MADD continues to provide victim support. We have 24/7. We connect victims and survivors with the resources they need. And MADD is still working on solving this problem. Unfortunately, it has gotten worse since the pandemic for various reasons. But we are hopeful now because the technology exists to be in every new vehicle, and the law has been passed that will prevent drunk driving before it starts. It'll save over 10,000 lives a year. And what is left to be done in that area is getting the laws implemented so that technology will be in every new vehicle. It was passed in 2021. We're about to pass the 3-year anniversary of the law being passed, but the rulemaking is still underway.
Yeah. You answered my question, when was the law passed? And I'm sure there's so much time that goes by where it has to go through some type of rulemaking, and what does that legislation mean, and how do you get it into the vehicles? But I told you guys we were going to have a good guest today, so that is fantastic. Okay, so tell us about MADD Sports.
Absolutely. MADD Sports is something we recently have been collaborating with sports professionals, those involved in sports at the collegiate level, and even down to the Little League level, because sports figures are so influential, and they have such a voice with young people and with the population in general, that it's really important to have people involved in making those right decisions when they attend sporting events and make those healthy choices. It's about mental wellness and making good choices all along the path. So we're looking to have voices that are powerful, and that's why we've developed MADD Sports.
Yeah, I think that's hugely valuable. Like I think back to when I was a kid, like I shouldn't be sitting here. I should be playing professional baseball or basketball, because that's what I thought I was going to do. Didn't, right? Now I'm own a recruiting firm with some business partners, and it's been a great life for us. But the sports people in my life were so, like, I just emulated them. Like, I wanted to be them, and so that's really going to resonate with kids.
Yeah, and I think that because they have that voice and people listen to them, that the young people will make better choices as a result of that speaking into and that truth that they're telling.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're so thankful. We're going to jump in. And, a long time ago, I heard this quote that someone says, people love lists. People love lists. And Amber, we connected immediately. I've already sent her podcast. She sent me books. I sent her books. So we really, really connected on that. And Amber has a list. It's a top 5 list that we're going to kind of go through. And it was something that you worked through in your life. And it's been so valuable for you in terms of your leadership and how you lead not only your professional life, but your personal life. And so we're going to talk through that list. I'm going to introduce whatever the topic is, and we're just going to work top to bottom, and you're going to run with it. But what made you do this? And I told you there was a quote that it reminded me, and that quote is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." When we were on the call the other day, I attributed it to Maya Angelou, and I looked it up, and it's actually Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay.
That is mostly attributed, and there's some questionable, but I'm going to go ahead and say Mahatma Gandhi. You've heard it here first. That's who said the quote. And yours is very similar. So tell us, what took you down the path of doing a self-inventory of, if I'm going to be a leader, I want to be like this?
Well, reflecting back on my life and my career path and journey, it was not a traditional path, but I often wished that I had a mentor. I had people who were influential in my life and did some excellent training and leadership. But there was often a time when I wished I could turn to someone else and get that advice that I was looking for, but I didn't know what that person was or where to find them. Working in nonprofit for 30 years and being a young person back then in finance, I often didn't have a female counterpart or role model that I could turn to. There wasn't a mentorship path in a nonprofit. You're just doing multiple jobs. You're learning everything you need to learn along the way. That's the way it was for me. And so I decided I wanted to be the mentor for others that I didn't have for myself.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that person for myself.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how I could change and lead myself as well.
Yeah, that's so good. And, we have so many resources today for you to mentor yourself. Like, I claim that people are my mentors, and I'll never meet them. It's authors of books.
That's true. Absolutely.
It's podcasts. It's going to a series of leadership at some convention center. And it's like, these people, now you have to stick with kind of a path, really, for it to be a mentorship, because you can have conflicting. But, I believe I've got so many mentors, and I'll never meet these people. And it takes you down that leadership path, right?
Right. And it takes action.
It takes a lot of action.
Yeah. So it's one thing to start something, and it's another thing to follow through with it.
Yeah.
And when it starts getting hard and you're not seeing maybe the change that you want to see right away, stick with it.
Well, okay, we're not even getting into this. We may not even get to this. Okay, so it's discipline is what it takes. It's intentional, but it's a discipline, because a lot of people try to start things based on motivation. I want to go work out. It's January 1st, and I'm really going to work out. And what happens by the end of January? No one's in the room, right? People have left the gym already. Because motivation naturally in everybody over time, it wanes. I saw a chart the other day where motivation was really high on the axis, and then it had time on the x-axis. And over time, the motivation was just barely a bump on the x-axis, because it falls away. And to use a Zig Ziglar quote, or I don't know if it was Dan Cathey, but they both have one about motivation. One of them says, how do you know someone needs motivation? And they say, if they're breathing, and the other one says, when do you know you need to motivate someone? And they're like, well, motivation's like taking a bath. You need one every day. And so, but if you're trying to do it for yourself, motivation goes away. You have to have intentional discipline to lead yourself, right? And discipline is something that can stay there every single day if you allow it. But that's what's really hard, right?
I agree.
Is being disciplined.
And consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to get into these 5 points, all right? So number one, Establishing your identity or your worth. That was one thing that you had to do for yourself first. What does that mean? What journey did you take there?
So some of the voices in my life were not positive ones. And I, even if I had made a decision, I don't think that person is right about what they're saying about me. Something gets into your spirit and settles. So I had to make a decision that my identity was not going to be based on what other people thought about me, what other people thought maybe I could or could not accomplish. But I needed to find a standard, a true north. Some ways of doing that is I use positive beliefs and affirmations, even scripture, about what the truth is about who I am and what I was formed to be, and that the basis of what I could achieve and what I could accomplish was not based on what other people thought about me, but no limits, because there is infinite potential within inside of a human being.
Absolutely.
And regardless of what somebody else thought about me, I believed that I could do it, even if I didn't succeed every time, to get up and try again and keep moving forward and develop that confidence that there's a true north. It's not based on a momentary thought or belief about what somebody else thinks or says. It's established in my being, who I am.
Man, that is so good. And everybody, well, I should ask this. Everybody can find their own true north. It's not like my true north needs to be your true north.
That's right.
So I have to really work on myself to figure out what is my true north, right?
Right. So, yes, you need to understand what your values are and what you believe to be true. And there are some universal truths, right? So we know gravity is true no matter what. If you decide to jump out of the window,
you're going to find out.
You're going to find out. So there's some natural laws in place, regardless of what your religious foundation is or any of those beliefs. We know that there are some things that are true no matter what. So yes, it could be different for every person, and we're obviously all wired up differently. We have different strengths. We have different weaknesses. So what I set out for myself may be different from what someone else wants to achieve. But at the end of the day, it's a value judgment about yourself.
I think about this in relation to the working world. Okay, so let's put it to work. In my organization, it's about performance and production, right? You have to produce. And you're paid off of that production. In an accounting world or a finance world, it's going to look a little bit different, but I'm getting a lot of promotions, or I didn't get that promotion, or I didn't get the feedback I was expecting on that, or maybe you did get feedback and it wasn't delivered the way that it landed on your ears that was acceptable to you because you put in a lot of effort for that. And I've had many meetings with people where I can tell they're not performing at the rate that they want to in, let's say, a production-based business or an accounting role. And I remind them, your value should not be caught up in what you're producing on a day-to-day basis. You're more valuable than what is showing on this whiteboard says that you are. If
Absolutely.
We're tracking measurement, you're more valuable, and you need to make sure that you can reconcile that within yourself and never let anything replace that. Have you had to have those conversations, I guess, maybe with yourself and then with others?
Absolutely. I think the saying goes, we're human beings, not human doings. And if someone's kind of wired up to be driven, which I tend to be, if it's all about a to-do list and getting things accomplished in a certain way and succeeding, that list is never ending. And so your health can suffer, and you can drive yourself into the ground.
Guilty. Okay, go ahead.
So it is more about than that. For me, it's what's grounding for me and has been grounding for me is other people, is my family, and having something greater in my life to be there for. So I don't want to spend all my time at work if someone's waiting for me, you know.
That's right.
Someone needs something from me that's more important than the job that I'm doing today. So I think that, yes, there are many aspects of life, and taking care of ourselves is part of that, right?
Absolutely.
So taking time to rest, being deliberate about rest. And it occurred to me at some point that recreation is recreation. So
nice.
It's starting new and being created again.
Yeah.
So taking the time to, I'm preaching to myself, but taking the time to exercise often and get out in nature and restore and recreate, so that we do have the energy to devote to other people and that we're leading or that we're speaking into their lives. And it's also recreating to see young people sometimes, and what they're doing, because it's very easy to get caught up in the negative things that are going on in the world and the negative news cycle and think, oh, we're doomed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But
especially
then I get
right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then I get around a group of young people, like I've done some mentor programs, and I got to be part of a hackathon, working on a solution for MADD for some technology. And they're college students, they're brilliant, they're coming up with all these solutions, and I'm like, yeah, there is a lot of hope. These are great young people.
Well, and you draw from that energy, right?
Yes.
That's why it's so important to surround yourself with the right people in every aspect of your life, right? Because there's that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. And so that can, for you, you're getting re-energized by being around younger people in this hackathon, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I don't know that I could ever do that. But that lights a fire inside of you where I'm sure the next day, week, however long you carried it, you're operating at another level because you're drawing from your energy from them.
That's so true.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're only at number 1, and I'm going to have you back because there's so many other things that you dropped in there that I can't go after right now, but a lot of health stuff, which I love. So I'm gonna refrain from going down that path so we can get through these.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 2, the superpower of grit.
Okay.
So tell us what that means.
So I mentioned in the last discussion about being driven. I think what drives me is in my career and in my personal life is what I call my superpower, which is perseverance and endurance. So I just naturally am wired up where I can do things sometimes longer and work harder. And I felt like I had to, honestly, because at a certain point in my career, I maybe didn't have the pedigree, the education at the right time, or the right school, or what have you. Maybe I was a female in a room full of men, and I felt like I was coming from, at least mentally, what I thought was I was coming from a deficit. So I said, how I get around that is I work harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
But that can only go so far, right?
Yeah.
Because eventually, your energy does run out, and you do get tired, and your health can suffer as a result. However, the perseverance and the passion is a great asset. And there's a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to that. I actually had it in my library, and I went to hear a speaker, and the speaker mentioned the book, and I was like, I'm going to read that. And then I realized, I have it.
Yeah.
And so I've been listening to it, and it's right on. It talks about...
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The need to, face obstacles and overcome them makes us stronger.
Yeah.
And even making mistakes and starting over makes us stronger, as long as you push through. And it is a characteristic which she's identified in various people as a reason for success. So even though I believe that I'm wired up that way, I think anybody can persevere. It's not always talent. I've seen plenty of talented people, especially in the performing arts field. Talent is not necessarily what gets you there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the willingness to suit up and show up.
Yeah.
No matter what. And I felt like no matter what was going on in my life, throughout my life, that I could always get up and go to work.
Yeah.
And to be that consistent with that, and to have the other part of it is the passion, right?
Exactly.
You have to love what you're doing, and that is a factor of grit as well. It's what keeps you doing when others might have stopped.
That's right.
It's the desire to keep going because you really care about what you're doing and you actually enjoy it. And I do enjoy what I do.
Yeah, I've read that book. It's such a great book. And her definition is passion and perseverance over time.
Yes,
Right?
over time. Yes.
And I always say something, I always say that consistency is undefeated. Like if you really think about it, like consistency is undefeated. Now that can be bad and that can be good. Like if I'm going to consistently go to the gym, I will see results, but I got to be consistent. I may not see them as fast as you, but if I do it over time and I'm consistently doing it, I'm going to see results. It's undefeated. Where it can be bad, and that's in every walk of your life. You can do it professionally and personally. Now, where it can be bad is if you're doing things consistently wrong or negative, or, I'm going to take it to a very basic, like I am consistently making an incorrect journal entry every single month. Well, you don't want to be consistent in that. You need to take the correction and you need to learn from that so that you can improve, right? Because we only have so much energy like you referred to. And so if you're consistently doing it incorrectly over a long period of time, your energy is going to plummet and you're not learning from the mistakes that you made. That's not good.
That's true.
But consistency pointed in the right direction, that's just undefeated. Like there's nothing better than that. And that is, you need to have perseverance. That's where it comes. Endurance, right? To continue to do it for a long time. And then you're going to get more satisfaction if you're passionate about what you're doing. And it's evident that you are passionate about what you're doing. And I love what I do too. I read that book and I think it's great. And grit can be learned.
Yes.
And you can start it at such a young age with your kids. Let them fail. It's okay when they're playing soccer on the soccer team and they're failing at whatever it is, or they're striking out on the baseball team, or that's good for them, and to teach them perseverance, and they will carry that through the rest of their life.
Yeah, I agree. And practice, right? Practice is also an aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you with this quote. We're going to move on to the next one, but this quote, I just heard this last night. I saved it. And I actually have already met with someone on my team today, and I played it for him multiple times. I'm like, we're going to listen to this about 3 or 4 times because I thought it was so good. There's actually another one. It's too long. I didn't write it down because I got lazy. Everyone is jealous of what you've got. No one is jealous of how you got it.
That's
Jimmy
true.
Carr. Everyone is jealous of what you got. No one is jealous. Everybody wants to be at the top of the mountain, at the summit, but no one wants to run and do all the switchbacks, and you have to go down 1,000 feet in order to go up 2,000 feet, and then you realize you're on the wrong ridge, and then you got to circle back, and people don't want to do that. They just want to take the elevator. They want to take a helicopter, drop them off at the summit, and say, I've arrived, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Putting in that work.
That's true.
Okay, so we're going to go to number 3 here. Values-driven and service-focused. Explain that.
So I believe we're here for a purpose, and it's to serve other human beings. We're here to make the world a better place. And no matter, I'm very mission-driven in terms of my career choices. I'm working for MADD, for example, very mission-driven organization. But I think about the work that you do and how you change people's lives by through their careers and leadership, and that no matter what business you're in, we're all in business to serve other people.
Amen.
And to do it well, and not just to go in and do a job, but to do it so that it makes the world a better place, regardless of what we're doing. And everybody can do that. Everybody's in business.
Yeah.
Whether it's the waitress or whether it's the janitor, everything can be done with excellence. And everyone deserves that respect and to be spoken into as well. They're speaking into other people's lives. They're making our lives better in some way. So the career choices that I have made, I spent many years working in the performing arts management field. I did make a decision at a certain point, probably 8 or 9 years ago, that I wanted to go a deeper level. I wanted to touch people's lives where they needed it the most. And so I went to work for an organization called Partnership with Native Americans that served remote and isolated Native American tribes throughout the United States, primarily in the western half of the United States, some of the most impoverished counties in the United States. And so I really found a lot of meaning in that work. And then I got the call to go to MADD, and it really is a life-saving mission. And the reason why I'm so excited about MADD is because I honestly believe that we can solve this problem. And I'd love to solve the problem of drunk and impaired driving for good and then retire and put MADD out of business.
That's such a great way to look at it.
But think about all the lives that could be saved, and it's so doable.
Yeah.
We have, I think, what we need. It's just changing hearts, minds, and attitudes at this point. But with the technology, with all the options that we have available to us in this day and age, it's a 100% preventable crime.
Yeah.
So when I say values-driven, I would love it to be in a world where I never had to hear another story about a parent losing their child to a drunk and impaired driver, or a brother, or a sister, or a mother, or a father, or an aunt, or an uncle. Those stories don't need to exist anymore.
Wow.
So that's why I believe that I'm here for a purpose, and whatever I do, I want to do it well, and I want to see this problem solved.
Well, Amber, usually I have a couple of comments, but I'm going to leave that exactly like you just said, because it couldn't have been said any more perfect. So thank you for that. That was great. So we're going to go to 4, okay?
Okay.
Continuous learner and open to change.
I think that, as I stated before, I taught myself a lot of things along the way.
Yeah.
If I didn't know how to approach a problem or solve a problem, or I didn't have the training or resources, I would dive in and learn how to do something. I would research. I'm a researcher. I love doing research. I love learning. And there's an aspect of that that's also about humility. And the world of knowledge is infinite. So we can't know everything there is to know. It's also about being open and humble to others around us and working together. And I have a hunger to learn. I want to change my mindset where it's limiting. So, for example, I don't mind saying I'm 60 years old. I turned 60 a few weeks ago. So, one attitude about that is, sheesh, I'm getting old,
Okay.
The other attitude about it is, what is 60? It's just a number.
Yeah.
People continue to learn well into their 80s and 90s. Oh, my
goodness, yes.
And there's no limit to what someone could do except the limit that they place upon themselves. Right. So whatever someone might believe about themselves for whatever reason, it's a limiting. It can be a limiting belief. So it's never too late
Yeah.
It's never too late to be mentored, to be taught, to learn new things, to start on a new path. We deserve that.
Yes. In fact, I would say that you have to keep learning at that age and older because that's what keeps you younger,
Yeah.
right? Because you're still using your brain. So you need to continue to do that, right? Everybody needs to continue. In my opinion, everybody should want to be a continuous learner. And as you get older, you really need that because that's a fountain of youth for yourself because you're still challenging yourself. I'm going to leave you with two things on this. Number one, there's a book called Think Again written by Adam Grant. Think Again. Think of the title, right? It's Think Again. If I still think today the way I thought 5 years ago, have I really ever grown in the past 5 years? Like what's been happening in the past 5 years if I'm still thinking the same way I did 5 years ago? My industry's changed in 5 years. I'm sure y'all have come up with new things in the past 5 years. Right? So we need to continue to challenge ourselves. Number two on this is strong beliefs held loosely. I love that saying. Like I really have a strong belief about this. I really have a strong opinion about it, but I'm going to hold it loosely because I'm going to allow myself to be open to change. And that should be in every conversation that we're having. And that's a Jeff Bezos quote. Strong beliefs or strong opinions held loosely.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
I
very
think that's
good.
great.
Yeah.
All right, we're on our last one here. And the last one is as simple as can be. Have belief, right? Have belief in yourself. Why is that so important?
Staying positive and hopeful about the future and believing that change is possible.
Yeah.
So negatives and positives can and usually are simultaneously true. Look at the world around us. There are many things going on at the same time. It's what we focus on, and it's what we choose to follow. So I can wake up in the morning and write down 5 things that I want to be my intention, my positive focus for the day. I could have started just rolled out of bed and, I've got too much to do. It's very negative. But just setting that intention and being positive and believing that there's hope
Yeah.
and change is possible.
Man, that's so good. I love how you have all these little routines and you're super intentional about how you've structured your day and your life. That's so good. I can take a lesson from that because I'm pretty routine and structured, but that's really good to continue down that path. There's a quote when I read your comments on having belief and positive and negative, and it brought me this little story that I've heard a long time ago, and it's about 2 dogs that are inside of you.
Oh, yes.
You've heard this?
Yes.
Yeah, there's 2 dogs inside of you. There's a positive dog and there's a negative dog. And someone asked, well, who's going to win? And it's the one that you feed the most.
That's right.
And so you got to feed the positive dog that's inside of you, right?
Yeah, I believe that's a Native American.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have heard that story, and that's so true. It's about what we feed and what we choose to give strength and power and energy to.
Yeah, I was just telling my oldest daughter, what gets on you gets in you, what gets in you becomes you, what becomes you comes out of you, right? And so what you see and what you hear and what you surround yourself with, that gets on you. And then what you see, what you hear, what you surround yourself gets inside of you. And then all of a sudden you're doing it to other people. So if it's negative, then you're going to be projecting negativity on other people. But if it's positive, which is what we need, you're going to be projecting that on other people. And so we can only control what we can control, right? And so what I can control is how I am to the team that I work with and my family and those that I'm surrounded with. So it's my job to be positive and build them up. Like if they enter my elevator and I'm the guy in charge of the buttons, I need to make sure I'm hitting the button that's going up and not hitting the B button for the basement. Because I don't want someone walking off my elevator that I was in charge of and like, oh man, yeah, I just got off of David's elevator. Don't go on that elevator because it's not a fun ride, right? I don't need to be that, and we get to control that.
Yeah, and what we say is really important. Our words
Absolutely.
have power.
Absolutely.
So we're speaking whatever we're saying into existence.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to wrap it up. This
Yes.
has been fantastic. I wish we had more time. Here's my one question for you. This is my last question, okay? Tomorrow, What can someone do tomorrow for themselves to intentionally begin down this path like you did years ago?
That's a very good question. I would say make a decision that you want to follow an intentional path, be more positive, believe in yourself, and take some action steps. There are plenty, like you said earlier, there's plenty of resources, right? We have no lack of teachers. I mean, you can go on to numerous masterclass, Udemy, many sites that you can go to, many teachers, John Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
There's many positive leadership teachers out there. It's about being open and taking the time to invest in yourself, and then continuing down that path and making a decision that you're going to follow through and you want to be the change that you want in the world.
Yeah, I love it. There we go. That quote from Mahatma Gandhi. Amber, we're so thankful for you. We're thankful for MADD and the organization and what you guys are doing. We're super happy that you came on our show. I think you are full of wisdom, and you can tell that you've done a lot of work, and we're excited that you were here and sharing that with us and our audience.
Absolutely been my pleasure. Thank you for this podcast and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome. Okay, and for our audience, thank you so much for joining us every time we have a podcast. Usually it's every other week. We've had a couple of cancellations, kids, vacations, things like that, but that's okay because we're still going to keep going and trying to bring you value every time you tune in. And until next time.
If you're looking for the next step in your career or the missing piece for your team, Unity Search has you covered. Whether it's finance and accounting, tax services, information technology, or human resources, Unity Search is here for you with experienced and dedicated hiring professionals. Reach out today and take the next step. Unity Search, placing you first.